Shalom, everyone, and today we're studying Parashat BeHa'alotekha. Uh, we are in the book of Numbers, chapter 8, verse 1. We spoke about it many, many times, but it's very important to remind that idea, the idea of Parashat BeHa'alotekha, that is starting with very few verses. It just the issue is only 3 verses, but the whole parasha is named after that issue. And although let's say 4 verses, yes. Now the two things about the beginning of the parasha of Baalotcha that is giving the title for the whole parasha. The story, like whoever does not understand Hebrew, דבר אל אהרון ואמרת אליו, בהעלותך את הנרות. The word בהעלותך means as you raise. In Hebrew, it's one word. As you raise or elevate the candles. Okay? Usually the word is להדליק, בהדליקך, which means when you light the candles. Why raising the candles? Why having that verb? And again, and another question is, the verse continues, אל מול פני המנורה יאירו שבעת הנרות. In front of the menorah, the 7 candles will shine. It's a problem because the candles should shine at the menorah, not in front of the menorah. Menorah means candelabra. The temple candelabra had 7 candles. It has 3 arms on the right, 3 on the left, 1 in the middle. So it was 7 candles in a row. Whoever saw the symbol of the menorah. That's one thing. Another thing is that verse 4, which I realize it's also belonging to the same part. Verse 4 says, וזה מעשה המנורה, this is the act of building the menorah, מקשה זהב עד ירך עד פיך, מקשה היא. The menorah was one piece of gold, which means the menorah had to be made as one piece, which whoever saw how the menorah is structured, it has many, many sides and branches, so it's not easy to make one piece of metal that looks like a menorah that needed a real special craftsmanship. Why was that so important? And why did it say that to erase the candles, and why did the candles shine in front of the menorah? So the Zohar is giving us an answer. And the answer is very simple. It repeats an idea that we talk about for a long time already, and we repeat that idea. Verse 11 in the Zohar of Parashat Baalotcha, תחזי בשעתה דכהנה התכוונה להדלקה בוצינין לטאטא, והבה קריב קטורת בוסמין. בהוא שעתה כדן בוצינין עילאין נהרין, והתכתר קולה כחדה, וחדו וחדוותה ישתכח בכול העלמין. הדר דכתיב שמן וקטורת ישמח לב, ועלדה בהעלותך את הנרות. Come and see. When the Kohen had the intention, it's not the right word, the word is nitkaven. He was occupied, focusing, meditating, contemplating, and understanding the cosmic meaning of the action of lighting the candles. Okay, when he was into that special act of meditation and contemplation, of lighting the candles below, and also when he was bringing the offering of the incense, the same time, at the same time, supernal divine candles started to shine, which are the sephirot, the emanations. And everything has been connected as one, together with happiness and joy in all the worlds above and below. And therefore it says BeHa'alotekha et hanerot, which means when the Kohen was physically, somebody standing on the side, he would see the Kohen, the priest, lighting the candles. He was not lighting the candles only. Of course, the action of lighting the candles could be seen by everyone. However, he lit the physical candles in order to shine and to light the upper sephirot. Therefore, when it says BeHa'alotekha, as you raise, which means you take the physical action of lighting the physical candles in the olive oil menorah. However, the physical act was only a mean to ignite, elevate the thought, the consciousness, the awareness. So the physical lighting of the candles somehow turn into illumination of the upper sephirot, and then everything connected together and created a circuitry of unity, love, light, happiness, and joy. So, if we really contemplate on that, this is very important because you want to be a happy human being. You have here the recipe. Whatever you do, you have to be aware of the uh, other spiritual dimensions beyond it. So if you are mitkaven, if you are meditative, and you are, they try to call it today mindfulness, if you're mindful, but this is much bigger. You're simply in awareness that there is a universe beyond, the universe of the creator, the universe of the soul, the universe of the world beyond and above the physical senses. And when you are simply connecting your mind, your thought, your desire, your actions to the metaphysical universe, you realize that some people just light candles and some people ignite and elevate spiritual illuminations. What does that depend on? Awareness, study, understanding. If you want to look for real fulfillment, happiness, and joy, you have to follow that direction. More than that, we just read about that the gold of the menorah, the golden menorah, was really one piece of gold. And the symbol for that is unity. When you feel that you're one piece with the universe, with the world around you, with the upper world, with other human beings, we all have the same goal. We all have the same interest. We all on the same journey, the journey of uniting the upper world with the lower world, the spiritual universe with the physical universe, so the physical universe can be satiated with the flow of the spiritual energy of the spiritual universe. This is the essence of what we're talking about. And that's why it says, Shemen uktoret yesamach lev. Uh, this could be found on the book of Proverbs 16. Let me give you the exact quote. Okay, it's uh, no, it's Proverbs 27, verse 9. Oil and incense will make the heart happy. Okay, so we're talking about the work of the temple. That is basically the work, as we learned in previous chapters, previous parashot, from Bamidbar and also Parashat Naso. It's all, and also Naso means to raise, Be'alotcha means as you raise. There's something that is happening this month. It's about ascending. How do we ascend to a higher frequency in which we are not just more spiritual? Define what it is. I don't know if somebody can really define how do you know somebody is spiritual when we are talking about the result, the Yesamach Lev, making the heart happy. You need to put into the equation the upper world, the spiritual universe, the ascension to a higher realm. Without it, the heart will stay empty. The mind will stay empty. The soul will stay hungry. And we won't understand the secret of true happiness. True happiness and fulfillment must be aligned with the human being, which is a physical being, connecting or reconnecting to its uh, spiritual dimension, metaphysical, uh, let's say, more divine dimension. Only when the two dimensions are connected, only when they are married to each other, synthesized with each other, we are in the month of, we read these parashot during the month of Gemini, which is about twins, two who are one, the upper world and the lower world, the creator and the creation, God and the nation of Israel, Mount Sinai Revelation, communication. But communication is not just about getting the piece of information. It's about communication between two people, is about connecting hearts and souls, living a life that is geared, that is programmed and focus on that goal is leading a life that has real, true hope of real, true happiness and joy. However, if we are only focused on being right while others are wrong, or having the right things and doing the right things, this is not giving us ever any kind of real, true, lasting fulfillment. This is the basic opening, the gate of Parashat Balotcha. How is this connected to the rest of the parasha? So let us continue. But here we have, just in few sentences, the secret of real, true, lasting happiness. Very simple. And you need to exercise all your life. How to be in that place of contemplating, meditating, being aware of the multi-dimensional universe we are part of, that when we put everything together to be one, united, like the menorah, only then you have that feeling of, I came home. So, let's continue and see how is it manifested in the rest of the parasha. Uh, then it goes, the next paragraph is dealing with taking the Levites from among the children of Israel and purifying them, which means preparing them to be Kli Kodesh. Kli Kodesh in Hebrew has few meanings. It means simply a vessel for holiness, which means could be a kiddush cup, any the menorah to light Chanukiah, all kind of that. But the meaning of it is also a human being who is serving, like the cantor, the rabbi, the everybody who's basically serving the community, and their job is to do the action that basically are involved with connecting the upper world and the lower world. Okay? So the Levites, in this case, are being purified so they will be ready to work in the temple. And then what happens? On verse 13, ועמדת את הלוויים לפני אהרון, and you should make the Levites stand in front of Aaron, the high priest, והנפת אותם תנופה לאדוני, and you should raise them, lift them up in front of God. What do you mean to lift up? There were 20,000 Levites. Can you imagine lifting all of them in the air? Uh, so, there's so many, just the Zohar is saying as follows. רבי יהודה שאל את רבי אבא, למה היה הכהן מניף את הלווים? Why does the Kohen, why does he have to lift the Levites one by one? And the answer was, משל למה דבר דומה? What does it look like? לתינוק שהוא בוכה וכועס, when you have a crying baby, and he's very, very angry, what do you do to appease him? You lift him up in the air and you shake him till he is quiet. אמר לו רבי אבא, יהודה, יהודה, הדבר זה בא לידך ולא חקרת בו. You didn't really research the idea? הלא ישמעו אוזניך מה שפיך מדבר? Are your ears listening to what your mouth is saying? כך היא מידת הגבורה, כועסת ורוגזת. Judgment. This is the Levites. The judgment is angry and upset. שנאמר, שמעון ולוי אחים כלי חמאס מכורותיהם. Shimon and Levi, brothers, but they have Hamas, which is what we know. Hamas is a Hebrew ancient word, which means it's all about anger and robbery and destruction and kidnapping, and that's the Hebrew word Hamas. ולפי שמתגברים ומתקשים באפם ובאתם, since they are very much into judgment, and that means anger and all what is connected to anger, to do judgment, to destroy. What is judgment doing? Destroying humanity, destroying life, destroying communities, just to bring destruction and pain and suffering. That was when judgment is being released. That's what's happening. אזי הכהן שהוא החסד העליון, and therefore the Kohen, which represent the upper divine chesed, loving kindness, מניף אותו צד של הלוויים, he raises the Levites, which is judgment, in order to appease it. It's like the Kohen, which represent Archangel Michael, which is unconditional love, and then you have so much anger and upset, and when you raise that anger and upset towards loving kindness, it appeases everything. And then the judgment will be appeased and won't be straightened. And therefore, the Kohen who lifted the Levites, it was in order to quiet down judgment in the world. So the judgment won't wake up. So the Zohar continues, Ba Rabbi Yehuda v'nashak yadav. So Rabbi Yehuda came and kissed the hands of Rabbi Abba, and he says, when the judgments are awakened in the world, who has the power to appease the judgments? Avraham Avinu alav shalom. Abraham, the patriarch. He can remove the judgments that are there every day, but they cannot withstand his power. How? Because Abraham has the power of unconditional love and giving and supporting. That is what can appease the judgment, the destruction, the anger, and so on and so forth. So this is very important to remember. So we learn over here, when we experience judgment, pain, burning in our lives, when we feel that power that is called the left column gvura, judgment, and we feel everything is about judgment, how do you appease the judgment? Simply lift it up like somebody lifts up a baby with love. Lift up whatever you're doing. How? By turning it into love, compassion, giving, and caring. When you generate that power, you sweeten the judgment of the Gvura that is around you, that somehow you face it because it's a payback. You pushed the button sometimes ago, and now here it comes. First of all, you have to acknowledge this is mine, nobody else's, because if it hits me, it is mine. If it was not mine, why would it hit me? Why would it plague me? Why would that bother me? If it bothers me and it annoys me, it means it is mine. Take responsibility. How do you deal with it? Raise your thought. We spoke about it last week, and I think there's a verse that is very powerful about it, that it says that by a person raising his mind, his soul, his consciousness, his concentration to God's light, when a person is raising in a time of trouble and judgment and confusion and stress and pressure and anger and distress, simply stop that chaos. Stop that. How do I stop it? Stop focusing on it. Focus instead on the light. Focus on God's light. We call it the power to overcome, which means this is the technology when you don't know what to do, when you are in stress, when you are in distress, when you're in trouble. Stop the racing of the negativity and the judgments in your mind and heart, and simply raise your kavanah, your focal point of thinking. That's not easy. You have to do it again and again. Sometimes you have to use the 72 names, the Anak Bekoach, other readings, whatever, but do everything, to focus on the light and its intention. And the light is infinitely everywhere. So when you do that, is like you're basically raising your consciousness. You're raising the Sefirot from bottom, anger, negativity, and distress, upwards by changing this frequency to love and compassion and caring. When you do that and you focus on the light, that is what I want, the light. I want the light for myself. I want to share it with others. If you are able to do that, it's like lifting the Levites, lifting the ware into chesed, so that is the appeasement that we are talking about. So you are distressed, you feel terribly stressed out, and you just have to ask for the light. You have to raise your thoughts and lift it up to the light. That's like the Kohen lifting the Levite. The Kohen, loving kindness, chesed, Levite, judgment, gvura. And this is very important. And here we have a very important paragraph of the Zohar, verse 12 till verse 15. So verse 12, it says, Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Yossi, היו הולכים בדרך. Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yossi, they were walking on the road. פגעו באלו הרי חושך. They came to the mountains of darkness. בעוד שהיו הולכים, נשא עיניו רבי אלעזר וראה אלו הרים הרמים. They were walking, Rabbi Elazar raised his eyes and he saw the great mountains. והיו חשיכים ונוראים באימה, and they were already darkened and fearful. אמר רבי אלעזר לחברים, אילו אבי היה כאן, לא הייתי מתיירא. So Rabbi Elazar, the father of Rabbi Shimon, said, if my father was here, I wouldn't be afraid. כיוון שאנו שלושה, since we are three, ודברי תורה בינינו, and we study Torah amongst us, לא יהיה נמצא כאן דין, the judgment cannot hurt us, which is an amazing idea. You feel judgment, and you can't raise your thought high enough. Do it with other people. Get together with other people and together find something positive to think about, something positive to study. So then the Shekhinah comes down on those people who do that. So also here, Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yitzchak were together. So they said, since we are together and we study Torah, nothing, no judgment can hurt us. So, and then he quotes from Parashat Noach from the book of Genesis. כתוב, so Rabbi Elazar says, ותנח התיבה בחודש השביעי, and the ark rested on the seventh month. על הרי ערערת, over the mountains of Ararat. So the flood covered everything, and only when the water receded a while, somehow, then the ark rested on the highest peaks of the mountains of Ararat, which is kind of north, in middle north of the Middle East. And then it says as follows, how lovable are the words of the Torah. שבכל מילה ומילה יסודות עליונים. Every word contains supernal secrets. והתורה כולה נקראת עליונה. The whole Torah is above everything. ולמדנו בברייתא די"ג מידות שבתורה, when we studied the Baraita of Rabbi Ishmael, of the 13 attributes in the Torah, כל דבר שהיה בכלל, one of these rules says, כל דבר שהיה בכלל ויצא מן הכלל ללמד, לא למד על עצמו יצא, אלא למד על הכלל כולו יצא. Whatever, the rule is like this, whatever was part of the ruling, that be, like we're talking about the logic, it's like there's a group of triangles and a group of squares and so on. The same thing when we're talking about that whenever you have a ruling, something was a triangle, it changed its form and became a circle. Okay? When he leaves and he's not part of the previous group, he didn't, when he left and he's not part of the group, it's not about himself, it's about understanding the group. This is a group only of triangles. I'm making it really simple. Okay, so when we see that something is not really connected, it is to teach about the whole thing. as we study in the Zohar, why do we have to know where the ark rested? Why do we need to know the date? Is that important? And the answer is כי התורה שהיא כלל עליון, because the Torah is a supernal rule. אף על פי שיוצא מן הסיפור אחד פשוט, ודאי אינו בא להראות על הסיפור. Although there is a story in the Torah that looks like, what's the connection? Why do I need to know about the mountain of Ararat? Are we going to build there a temple? No. Are we going to do something special about it? No. So why do I have to know the story and to the details? ודאי אינו בא להראות על סיפור. Of course, it doesn't show about that story, אלא להראות דברים עליונים וסודות עליונים. But it came to teach us about divine secrets. ולא ללמד על עצמו יצא, אלא ללמד על הכלל כולו יצא. And it's not there to show a new rule, but to explain the general rule. Which means, כי הסיפור ההוא של התורה, או המעשה ההוא, the story that the Torah is telling us, the ark of Noah rested on the mountains of Ararat on the 17th day of the second month, which is Cheshvan. Okay? There is a message over here. And what is the message? It doesn't come to tell us a simple story. ומה אכפת לנו אם נחה בהר זה או בהר זה? What do we care if the ark rested on the mountains of Ararat or other mountains? הרי הוא אוכל לנוח באיזה מקום שהוא. The ark of Noah had to rest somewhere. Why do we need to get the details of the address? הוא משיב אליי ללמד על הכלל כולו יצא. כי הוא רומז על זמן הדין, ואשרי עם ישראל שניתנה להם תורה עליונה ותורת אמת. מי שאומר שסיפור ההוא של התורה הוא להראות על אותו סיפור בלבד. So first of all, the story has very, very broad messages. However, these messages have to be deciphered. That's giving humanity the ability to decipher and earn the next stage. And since the Torah is divine, every story of the Torah is divine, although it doesn't look like it for many, many years. I'm jumping to verse 15. Come and see a king, flesh and blood. אין לפי כבודו לדבר דיבורי אדיוט. It's not his honor to speak with commoners. כל שכן לכתוב אותם, to write them down, וכי יעלה על דעתך שמלך עליון הקדוש ברוך הוא לא יהיה לו דברים קדושים לכתוב ולעשות מהם תורה? So you think that the creator himself has nothing holy to do and write to this moment? אלא שהוא אסף כל דברי אדיוטות כמו דברי עשיו, דברי הגר, דברי בלק ביעקב. He collected, accumulated the words of all kinds of like people you don't want to be part of them. The words of Hagar, the words of Lavan to Yaakov, דברי באתון, דברי בלק בירמיה, דברי בלק, דברי זמרי, וקיבץ אותם, וכל שאר הסיפורים הכתובים. He took all of those words of Bilam and Balak and Zimri, which are evil people, even, and make a Torah out of it. So he's saying if a king, flesh and blood, is it honorable for him to collect all kinds of weird stories and make from it a book that represents the crown? No. So do you think that God will choose those people? And the words of Bilam are evil. The words of Balak are evil. The words of Zimri are evil. And what about the the donkey of Bilam? Yes. So why do we use them? And the answer is everything in the Torah has a meaning and a purpose, and it all serves the same purpose, which is to bring us into tikkun, into unity with God. And he explains about it few things, but the fact is we have to understand whatever we see in this world, in the Torah, or in our reality and our perception of world, where even if we see evil stuff or stupid or we think it's unnecessary, like why do you need cockroaches? Why God needs uh, spiders, whatever. Whoever learns ecology realizes that all of these creatures, they're needed. They're part of the big picture, and without them, the world will be lacking and won't be able to be stable. So when we say, so the story continues, נכנס רבי רע מערה אחת בתוכה. Rabbi Yossi, in the middle of the night, he was looking for a place to rest. He saw a cave. He went into the cave. He saw there a lit candle, and he heard a voice saying, "בהעלותך את הנרות על מות פני המנורה יראו שבעת הנרות." When you raise the candles, in front of the candles, the 7 candles will shine. כאן לקחה כנסת ישראל של מלכות אור, שהיא מעילה שהיא בינה מתעטרת, וכל הנרות, שהם ספירות המלכות מאירים בה. Which means, by taking physical reality and illuminating it with a spiritual mentality, bringing the godly light into everything you go through. That's how you shine the world, and sooner or later the world will become a pleasant place. Because all of that, all of those mitzvot, all of those spiritual actions of people from all over the world, who simply are contemplating, they are mindful, they are focusing on raising spirituality together with the physicality. And when they do that, then the world can continue living. So, so that covers up one very important aspect of this parasha, very, very important, of Ba'alotcha. On chapter 9, we have the story of the second Passover. What is the second Passover? Simple story, which also emphasizes the previous story. It says, there is a description on the first month after the Exodus, which means a year after the Exodus. Now, ויעשו בני ישראל את הפסח במועדו. And the children of Israel celebrated Pesach in its time. Okay? Full moon in Aries, a year later. So what happened over there? Something happened that when the whole nation celebrated Passover, there were people who were impure. And there's a kind of impurity, for instance, touching a dead corpse. Then you impure for 7 days. You have to stay away from negativity and corpse for 7 days. Then you do go to the mikveh, and then you're purified and cleansed. Okay? However, what happened was that when you had to be pure when you celebrate Pesach. So when they celebrated Pesach the first time, there were people who were not pure, and it takes 7 days, so they didn't have time to purify towards Pesach. So they came to Moses and asked him, what should be about us? We realize everybody got that awesome power of the Exodus. What about us? God does not want us to receive that power. So they could not purify themselves because they got impure more than 7 days before Passover. So Moses is asking God. He says, I'm asking God. And he says to them, stand over here and I will listen what God orders you to do. That's verse 8, chapter 9 in Numbers. So God speaks to Moses saying, speak to the children of Israel saying every person who will be impure or will be far away, he won't make it to the Beit HaMikdash, to the temple, then he will celebrate Passover a month later on the full moon of Taurus. So what we have over here is a very important lesson. Here there were those people who could not participate in celebrating Pesach, but it's not about celebrating Pesach. There's no celebration of Pesach. It is every holiday is a gate in time. Every holiday, there's a certain energy that we can draw to ourselves so we can, BeHa'alotekha, raise ourselves to a higher level spiritually, overcome more of our evil inclination. This is the story. This is the name of the game. Now, the Israelites could not celebrate Pesach. They didn't look at it, oh, we missed the tradition. Okay, so it's behind us. Better like this. Better like it is. No, they were like, we need that power. We need this awesome power. What power? What power do you get by eating matzah and maror, bitter herbs, and eggs and meat? What do you get out of it? And the answer is there's a metaphysical force that is available on the night of Passover. And if you're not drawing it down, you won't get it. You need to have the mindfulness, the contemplation, concentration that we said before. But they could not because they were impure. They could not celebrate, which means do those actions of eating the matzah and the maror on so on Pesach. They miss it. They wanted that light. That's why when they came to Moses, said, what about us? Moses said, I'll ask God. And God said, that's what you're going to do. You have a second chance, always. Why? When your intention is good. I want the light of God. Okay? You will have the opportunity to get the light of God. A month later. So let us continue. So that's another topic. And it's again about the idea I'm not celebrating a tradition. I'm not celebrating some rituals that belong to my tribe or my nation and they are part of my identity. This is nonsense. That's why most Jews left the synagogue in the last 150 years. This is why most Jews stopped being part of religion. Why? Because it's not a ritual that you perform just to be part of something old. So I don't want to be part of that something old. There's so many new things I want to follow. Only when I really understand the deep spiritual, metaphysical dimension of Passover, only then I can connect and experience something that is out of this world. And by the end of the Passover Seder, I'm flying and I feel I got something I cannot get through pills and powders and money and all kinds of other stuff that is all to get us excited. This is something that is so pure, so relevant, and so powerful that I want it to be part of me. How? Celebrating Passover with the meditations or Shabbat, laying tefillin, all of those rituals that are not symbolic. They are activating metaphysical forces. However, if you're not concentrating about it, if you're not contemplating about it, if you don't know what you're doing, then it will stay empty and then every ritual will be Passover. It will pass over your head and you miss the opportunity. And today, how many people don't, feel if they cannot go to the synagogue on Shabbat or a holiday, and they feel, oh, I lost, there was so much power that I wanted to connect to. So living or being part of a civilization that is very, very materialistic. This is this is our biggest test. It's so easy to fall into the rituals of everyday making money, family. Everything is superficial. Everything is tasteless and meaningless. You just do it because you have to, because everybody else does it. No, I don't. I don't want just to do it. I want to know what is the purpose. What am I arousing? What is that I'm raising when I'm doing whatever I'm doing? I have to ask questions. Okay. So now the other part is about the traveling of the Israelites in the desert. And there is an amazing description of the traveling. We already learned about the order of the traveling in the desert. Every tribe had its own place. And it says we are reading in the book of Numbers, chapter 10, verse 13, וייסעו בראשונה על פי אדוני ביד משה, ויישא דגל מחנה בני יהודה בראשונה. So the flag of the camp of the children of Judah was first. And then came Issachar, and then Zevulun. And then after that, the Mishkan was loaded on the people of Gershon from the Levi, Uvnei Merari, Nosei Mishkan, they carried the Mishkan, and then they were then journeyed the flag of the tribe of Reuben. I'm reading verse 18, chapter 10. And then chapter 19, Shimon. And then chapter 20, Gad. And then came the Kehatim. It's a family among the Levites. They're the ones who carry the parts of the temple. And they, when they arrive, they will start building the tabernacle. So there's a whole, but everything that we read over here has a metaphysical meaning about how do you move forces. So there will be those godly forces that are in the universe will be constructive. And then we have a very important kind of completion to that. It's in the book of Numbers, chapter 35, Vayi bin Soarot, Vayomer Moshe, Kuma Hashem v'yafutz oyevecha. This is the verse being recited in every synagogue when the ark in the synagogue is being opened. Before that verse, there is the letter Nun written backwards. You cannot read it. Just a letter, it's not a word. You cannot read a letter in Hebrew. You need to have a word in order to read something. And then verse 36, and many synagogues say that when after putting the Torah back to the ark, and then another Nun written backwards. A lot of people say upside down. No, in the old print, they didn't have a backward Nun. They simply put the lead piece of Nun upside down, but it's really backwards. What is this story? And also the Zohar says in Parashat Vayakel, when we open the ark on Shabbat, and we say, Vayi bin Soaron, Vayomer Moshe Kuma Adonai v'yafutz oyevecha, and we say that verse, the gates of mercy in heaven open up. So when you open the ark, you're not opening a closet. You're opening the gates of mercy in the heavens. And now you should ask for help. So there's a prayer written in the Zohar, Parashat Vayakel, that most people in the synagogue read that prayer in Aramaic. But you can make your own prayer. Sephardim, they make the prayers for healing, blessings, all of it, because that's what it says in the Zohar. If you're in the gates of mercy, open up. What are you going to do? You're going to pass over it? Use it. Okay, so here the question we have is, what is this weird story about the Nun? That you have two Nun, two times the letter Nun, written backwards, which means they're facing. In Hebrew, the letters are facing from right to left, but here the two Nuns are facing from left to right. So the Zohar is explaining to us. I don't know if it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be easy to explain. ויהי בנצורון, רבי אלעזר אמר, Rabbi Elazar said, כאן יש להסתכל, this is a place that you really need to contemplate upon. הנון שהיא מחזירה פניה לאחור, וכאן בשני מקומות, the nun that facing backwards in two places, the nun before ויהי בנצוע and after, and it's a nun כפופה. It's a regular nun. Regular nun is written this way, while nun kfufa is a final nun, is written that way, which means one long line. It goes under the line of the other letters. Okay? Excuse me. So he says that the nun, the regular nun, that is malchut. It is the vessel, it's a symbol or representing the Shekhinah. A final nun, that is a long going under the line, it's combination of a female and male, the Shekhinah in the upper realm, Ze'alpin Malchut. And that was explained before. In this nun, the regular nun, that it says, that is put over there before Vayi bin Soharon, it says, Kuma Hashem. It's a call for God to rise. Shalanuna kfufa markuma. That was said about the nun, that the regular nun, okay, is called also maybe this way. Okay? So it's called a nun kfufa, bent over nun. That for the nun, it says kuma, raise up. And therefore the two nuns are backwards. But why are they backwards? Come and see. That's verse 128 in the Zohar of Asulam. לא נאמר נון באלף בית של אשרי יושבתך. One of the most powerful psalms is being said in the Zohar. You should say it 3 times a day. One in the early morning prayer, then second time after Amidah, the silent prayer, and then the third time is before Amidah in Mincha, the afternoon prayer. Okay? And this is based on Psalms got a number. Okay, this is a sorry. Psalms 145. Psalms 145 is written as an acrostic according to the Hebrew alphabet, And there is a verse starting with Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, almost the whole Hebrew alphabet, except from there's no verse starting with Nun. This psalm is so lofty and so positive that you don't want to have the Nun. Nun means in Hebrew, nafol. You know what? Usually, in many grammatical structure, the Nun simply falls and it disappears. So you don't hear it in the word. And if the nun from the word nafol falls, you get fall. Fall is in English. Na fall in Hebrew, fall in Hebrew in English. Same meaning. Okay? So the nun in this Psalm 145 falls. It has no verse starting with the nun because it symbolizes falling. And this is a verse that is a praise that is very lofty. So when it says, וארון הברית Hashem נוסע לפניהם, and the Ark of the Covenant is traveling in front of them, when the Ark was traveling, the letter Nun was traveling over, sitting over the Ark of the Covenant. What are we talking about? Come and see the love of the God, holy blessed be he to Israel. Although when they go astray, God does not want to leave them. And every time he's showing them his face. As we read last week, Yisa Hashem panav elecha, God will raise his face to you, okay? V'yichuneka, and give you freedom. So the Nun is looking backwards, is looking at those who fell, which means it's a symbol. Like somebody who turns his face to whoever they love. Which means the Nun, that is, if Nun is falling, you reverse the Nun, it's a reverse of falling, it's raising. It's raising. So here in this parasha, we have that, we could call it inoculation against falling. We can call it fortification, whatever you need. Even when you fall deep in the darkest pits of your consciousness, you lose it. And you're really in the darkness and everything looks hopeless. You remember that God is always, although you're far away from him behind, he's turning his face to you to shine at you so you can, that light will raise you up. Although you fell, you made mistakes, you hurt. And immediately after that part, which means the backward nuns are in chapter Yud, chapter 10 of the book of Numbers. Immediately after is chapter 11. ויהי העם כמתאוננים רע באוזני אדוני. And the people were complaining evil in the ears of God. וישמע אדוני ויחר פה, and God heard and he got upset. And the fire of God started to consume the side of the camp. ויצעק העם אל משה, verse 2, and the people yelled at Moses. ויתפלל משה אל אדוני ותשקע. And Moses prayed to God and the fire disappeared. Okay, do you think it's enough? Verse 4, והאספסוף אשר בקרבו, התהוו תאווה וישובו ויבכו גם בני ישראל. So Asafsuf, who is the Asafsuf? Verse 4, the Erev Rav. Asafsuf in Hebrew, when you want to say Asafsuf, it's a mob. A mob of rioters. Okay? They are, what's the word? They're no good. They're no good. And they had passion and they cried And they brought the Israelite to cry also. We want to eat meat. We didn't eat meat for a long time. We remember the fish that we ate in Egypt for free, and also the zucchinis and the watermelons and the and the onions and the uh, some other vegetables, and of course the garlic. What about that? Remember that in the desert they were eating manna. It tasted exactly what you imagined. So if your imagination was poor, you tasted the lousy food. Okay, but it was about you to take responsibility. They were complaining. And we know that when we complain, we go far away from God because we just learned Mount Sinai Revelation was all about taking responsibility, taking the image of God, which means I am the creator of my happiness. I am the creator of my light. I am the creator of my life. No one can do it for me. I am the sole responsible. And all what bothers me, everything that happens to me on the road, even things that look the most awful, all of them are part of God's plan to get me to become the best I can ever get. So, if I am, instead of raising myself, now you see the whole story. It's all about how do I raise myself when I connect to God's light, when I connect to God's will. So everyone will be successful, everyone will be a vessel for his light. When I connect to that, I will be able to withstand those challenges, face them, and rise. But if there's no God, there's no heaven, there's no meaning, there's no goal, there's no vision, there's no calling. Whatever happens, it's just probabilities. And there's a lot of evil. And I'm upset about this evil. You kill yourself. And you kill yourself. And you fall and you fall and you fall. And here God says, even when you fall and you're so much in the darkness, you don't even realize how dark it is. God is shining at you till you say, I do. Because when you have the noon facing you, the ark is walking in front of you and the noon is facing you. It's like that mother, the female, the mother that is always there for her child, no matter how naughty he is. So basically, that's what this parasha is about. We have, of course, more stories. Uh, there's a story over here that finally God sent the quails, and there was so much meat, and they ate it, like so much of it. It they died. They ate too much. And then they were angry. Why is it happening to us? And Moses says to God, I cannot rule those people just like this. And God says, I'll give my spirit upon your court. So Moses is taking 70 people, 70 elders, and they got prophetic. And all this parasha is again and again about if you want to face the problems, you cannot face them without walking with God. Only when you realize that God is with you, He's with you all the time. But when you realize that, you're able to start coming up, raise yourself, and reach that place of happiness, peace, and freedom. Thank you so much.